I'm open.
I'm open.
I'm open.
I'm
open.
I'm open. Welcome to the I'm Open podcast with Sam, Joe, Andrew, and Ryan. Ryan's sick today, but he's here because we have a very special guest.
Yep.
Guest with a T. Commissioner Steve Hall of the AUDL is joining us. Yeah. Anyone have anything to say about how excited we are?
I'm excited. I mean, this is our first non-ADL player who's part of the ADL.
We had some coaches on.
You're right.
Our first businessman.
Cut that.
Yeah, I'm stoked. This will be interesting. This is definitely not our typical interview. I was trying to look up the guy. His LinkedIn's very impressive. Yep. I think we're a little bit in over our heads, so we'll see how this goes. But my goal is that we're calling him Stever by the end of the podcast. That's my Steve-O. Yeah, there you go.
Could be
Steverino.
We've got to also shout out for the 100th time Matt Stevens for connecting us again. It's every cool thing that we do is just directly correlated to Matt Stevens doing that for us.
Yeah, that's pretty true.
We owe him our lives.
So the other GMs got to really step up and give us shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, guys.
Hey.
Welcome.
Thank you. Hello.
So, Commissioner Hall, welcome to the I'm Open podcast. My name is Sam. With me are Joe, Andrew, and Ryan, as always. And we are super excited to have you on. We have a ton of questions to ask you, and if that's all right, we're just gonna kind of throw them at you over and over for the next hour.
Dive on in.
We always ask players this, but I feel like you would still have an interesting sort of answer. What is your background or connection to Frisbee itself, and sort of how did you get into it, and how did you end up doing this, I guess?
Sure. Great question. So I started playing Ultimate in 1985 at Georgia Tech, where I went undergrad. So kind of picked it up intramural sophomore year, and have been that kind of casual league, summer league player for many, many years. My fraternity brother, a guy named Nick Jostes, one of those wiry guys who could jump high and run fast, and was kind of cool to hang out with. Well, he ended up, we stayed good friends for all these years. He ended up playing with Chain Lightning, back in the 90s, and so I kind of envied him from far away, as I was spending a lot more of my time, working and not playing Ultimate. But again, kind of kept it up. I played for 1 year. I call it kind of competitive club for a team called DUI out of Denver. I lived out there, I think, in 95, about that time. So that was my only claim to fame in terms of competitive Ultimate until recently. And I lived up in New York for 13 years, moved to Charlotte in 2009, started playing some Masters level then, and I've continued to kind of play. I play Great Grand Masters now. I was on Recycled. We went to Worlds in Ireland back this past June. That was awesome. So excited to do that. And now I've picked up with a club called Tri-Aged, or it looks like Triaged, which is probably more appropriate for Great Grand Masters. Kind of the B team for the Triangle area. Hurt is kind of number one. So, that's kind of been, I'd say, kind of my club career. And when I was playing Masters in Charlotte, it was probably, I think, about 2012 when a guy said, "Hey, I hear there's this new thing called Pro Ultimate going on." I was like, "No way. Can't believe, Pro Ultimate, what does that really mean?" And so I'm like, I'm going to send them an email just to kind of check it out. 2014, I get this random email saying, "Hey, we're thinking about a South Division. You had inquired about, team and team ownership. We'd love to talk to you." So that was my introduction to Steve Gordon, who was the first CEO and commissioner. And I ended up buying the Charlotte territory from the AUDL as it was expanding. thought about Atlanta because I went undergrad there. I also went to grad school at Emory. And so got involved with the AUDL in late 2014, owned the Charlotte territory for a couple of years, and then said, hey, it's kind of a little small. We're still, kind of the little sibling to the big brother, big sister in the triangle. And Atlanta ended up not having an owner. The league owned it. So I kind of put Charlotte on ice, turned it back to the AUDL, and then I took over Atlanta. And so I've been a team owner since then. And then back in 2018, as I was getting to know Rob Lloyd, the chairman, and his son, Mark Lloyd, was kind of he was a catalyst of kind of getting dad involved. Had some long conversations with Rob at some of the owners meetings and said, hey, I think Ultimate could be huge from a commercial perspective. It's got, I said, it's got the exciting plays. We've packaged it in about 2 to 2.5 hours, perfect for television. It's a highlight machine, fast action. I said, Rob, we're made, we're kind of made for TV. We're made for fans. And he was like, Steve, I totally agree. And he had been working and about ready to kind of retire. And so we had a kind of a long night, good dinner, maybe, a couple of adult beverages, and like, let's do this. Let's kind of ramp it up. So I jumped in, and it was at the end of Steve Gordon's career as the first commissioner. So timing was working out. Took over as commissioner and CEO in late 2018, October. And then Rob and I just sat down and kind of blank sheet of paper said, let's do this. Let's really take it to the next level. And that's where, a lot of things have really started to kick in since then.
Awesome. If you could, something that I don't think us on this podcast are that aware of, and certainly our listeners, but would you mind kind of giving us some insight as to what your responsibilities actually are as a commissioner? Like, what's your day-to-day? Just tell us everything.
Sure, absolutely. And so, the formal title is CEO and commissioner, which, it's big and long. I'm not sure, I'm worthy of all of that. But so I kind of have two roles right now. One is external facing and one is internal facing. The external is, we're raising capital because we need more money for advertising. There's a lot of people who don't know what Ultimate is. A lot of people still think it's disc golf. So we need to get greater awareness from the broader community. So spending time raising capital so we can do more marketing, advertising, working with sponsors and partners, looking to expand, do bigger and better things to grow the sport of Ultimate, and hopefully, create more fans eventually for the AUDL. So I spend a lot of time looking for big partnerships, sponsorships, talking to potential investors. That's a lot of my day. And then, the other part is internal facing. So, working with teams to make sure they're up and running correctly, working with our team on marketing and advertising, both at the league level, working with the teams on their marketing and advertising. We've got the relationship with Legends. So they are chasing sponsorship sales. They also place our digital ads. So we've got a lot of conversations going with them. Some it's just, working with players on new things. In fact, I was talking to someone today about, hey, can we put a player's image on a poster and sell it? Well, what's that like? And the concepts of NIL, and how do we, if we sell it for money, how do we get some of that money back in the player's pocket? So we're working on concepts like that. Working with Tim DeBile on the video game, digital collectibles, youth training videos. We've got a lot of stuff kind of in the pipeline. And so a lot of it is helping to give strategic advice to our team. And so I spend a lot of time on Zoom calls, and really helping think about the strategy while the team is doing the execution.
It's so funny that you talk about not everybody knowing what Ultimate Frisbee is, and like mentioning Frisbee golf, because one of our questions that we have here was like asking about what the hardest parts and what the easiest parts were about being commissioner, and if one of the hardest parts was, not everybody knowing Ultimate and not being able to distinguish it from Frisbee golf.
It's tough. It's you swallow your pride. Rob Lloyd and I we call it the Uber test, right? Mm-hmm. So when we get in an Uber, if we're going to a meeting or something, I always say in the Uber, hey, how are you doing? What's going on? And they say, hey, we got a question for you. Have you ever heard of Ultimate? And we stop there. We don't say ultimate disc or anything else, ultimate. And it's interesting, one, have they ever heard of the word ultimate? And then they're like, yeah, I think so. Isn't that thing, in the trees? And we're like, as soon as they see trees, we're like, oh, there we go again. And so, we swallow our pride a lot. We love the sport. And we think, gosh, it's so awesome. How can you not know about it? But it just reminds us that there's a lot of people in the world that don't know it. We have, obviously, I think, as you guys know, a smaller, very passionate ultimate community, and it's great. But, if we're really going to grow the sport and we're going to grow our business, we've got to get more people knowing about it. And that's tough. So, Joe, back to, when people say, hey, if you raise a bunch of money, what are you going to do with it? Right. It's a classic question, source of capital and uses of capital. And, if you looked at our pro forma, if you looked at the presentations we put out there, it's all about marketing. Whether, we've hired 2 new senior directors of marketing, Ryan Pierce, who's from the Orlando Magic, Alexia Walker, NASCAR, and she was with a digital agency. We've got the people to help execute, but now we literally need to spend hardcore, marketing dollars. So digital ads, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, all the classic ways that you get out there. And that's the big focus. And it's the frustration and also the opportunity.
Yeah, for sure. That got me thinking a little bit. Like, I definitely know within the ultimate community, there's people who are really content with just kind of its cult status, and are maybe a little averse to growing it too big. They don't want it to be like a mainstream sport. What are your thoughts on that, and like how do you approach that?
Yeah, it's tough, right? Everyone have their opinion. It's a fair opinion, and that's cool. And that's why I think it's kind of neat in some ways that we've kind of all grown up with, kind of club ultimate. We play for each other, right? You kind of pay to play. You go to a tournament, you pay to play, you play for each other, you enjoy it, you play with your teammates and against friends and foes. And it's kind of that great rivalry. And I think that's super. And I think it should always exist and continue. I mean, again, I'm playing great grandmasters now. I'm 56. I'm already looking forward to being that young stud in the legends category in a few years, right? And so it serves a lot of purposes. But I think we also have this really cool concept of pro, quote unquote, right? Which is we've really built this and tweaked Ultimate for the fans. So this is for the paying clients, for the fans to enjoy. And I think both can coexist happily, right? I mean, we've got Beach Ultimate, we tweaked that. You can play small-sided. We've got Golty now, which is super. So I think, Ultimate as a sport will continue to evolve, and you'll have tweaks. And that's right. That's the beauty of Ultimate, right? You throw a tournament, you can come up with your own rules. That's kind of how we've always been, whether it was kind of the hippie kind of culture back in the day, in my day, I talked to a bunch of moms at the Queen City Tune-Up here in Charlotte. And I said, hey, what do your kids do? I was kind of curious. I was kind of roaming the sidelines. And like, oh, they're kind of the geeky kids now. That's what so it's kind of always been this fringe sport, it feels like, whether it was kind of the hippie crowd back in the day or now the kind of the geeky kids that didn't really, they weren't the football, basketball, like, big muscular kids, and they wanted that different thing. So I think we can satisfy all interest there.
I think it's cool how you kind of talk about this business oriented. Just one question I've been really interested about is the gambling aspect to Frisbee and just the AUDL in general. I live in Colorado, so I am actively betting on DraftKings. And I've heard you in the past say that you think it's a great way to grow the sport. I was wondering if there's how does that relationship work? Do you have a partnership with DraftKings? Is there a FanDuel partnership coming up in the future? I mean, I have a ton of gambling questions, but I'll start with just how does the relationship with DraftKings work?
Yeah, it's a great question. And we're still learning a lot. So we have to be regulated in certain states. So when we were talking to DraftKings a couple of years ago, when we had the official partnership with them, they actually helped us get registered, quote unquote, registered in 5 states. I think we're up to 8 now, at least. We've also just hired a consultant to help us get registered. So it's a lot of paperwork you have to fill out. You have to describe your sport, how players are compensated, all that kind of stuff. And so that's just, that then allows an operator like DraftKings or FanDuel to create betting products. And so we kind of do that to help facilitate their business, right? And then from there, what we've done is we signed a 5-year deal with a company called L Sports. They're Israeli-based. If you get into the gambling space, Ryan, Sport Radar and Genius Sports are kind of like data distribution companies. They are data distribution companies. So they take all the stats from like NFL, NBA, MLB. They suck all the data out. Then they'll create betting products, lines, things like that, and they'll ship it out to the DraftKings, the FanDuels, the Bet365s, the Betfreds, all of those people out there. Even they'll send it to the media companies like NBC and everybody else, because they're manipulating the data, they're running statistics, they have their algorithms, all that kind of stuff. We're too small for Sport Radar or Genius Sports. So L Sports, Israeli company, does a lot of business outside the States, said, hey, we want to break into the US. We would love to work with you all as a partner to kind of learn, kind of cut our teeth and kind of get our foot in the door. So L Sports, the AUDL has, we actually have a company called UltiX Technology, which we could talk about. That's where the video game, collectibles, all the betting stuff is coming out of UltiX Technology, which the AUDL has an ownership stake in. And so we AUDL pump our data over to UltiX. UltiX scrubs it, sends it out and via API to L Sports. L Sports then creates betting products. So they'll, whether it's, just a line on a game, they'll have in-game products you'll see come out this year. Oh yeah, and that's
exciting.
Yeah, as a gaming guy, you know, right? That's the fun stuff. That's where the growth of gambling is going. And then they will then pump that out to the DraftKings, the FanDuels that really have the client interaction, right? You have your account at DraftKings or FanDuel or anywhere else. And they will also sell it to like Native American casinos. And not only do that, but also sell what we call a bet watch program. So you can buy the data to bet, like in Colorado, if you went to, I can't remember, it's Blackhawk or somewhere out there.
Yeah,
the idea is you buy the betting data, but also you could buy the video. So you could have like a subscription to AUDL.tv. So you could sit in Blackhawk Casino, watch, the Colorado Salt Lake match and bet on it at the same time, it's like going to Vegas, right? That's the fun where you can sit there and watch an NFL game and bet on it, both the lines for the game and then all the prop bets that go along. That's fan entertainment. That's fan engagement, which we think is great. That's where modern sports is going, and we better be on that train. If not, we're going to get left behind.
Amazing. So last year, it was limited, or for at least in Colorado and being on the internet, for me, it was limited to just DraftKings and then just kind of spreads, money lines, over-unders, and kind of like who's going to win the championship. But it sounds like this year, through your partnership with L Sports and DraftKings, you're going to expand to maybe some props or in-game betting.
So we don't have a formal relationship with DraftKings. That was a 1-year partnership where they were the official betting partner. And that's why we created that Friday night game. We had our Saturday night game of the week, and we created that Friday night for DraftKings. That's when they had a lot more money that they were throwing at everybody. And they've since pulled back their marketing and partnership budgets. But we were really excited that DraftKings continued to make lines on the AUDL, right? They're doing that. We have no partnership with them. They're literally doing it on their own, which is really cool. So somebody out there is paying attention to us, and it's, the big gorilla of DraftKings, which is cool. And then L Sports, they will start to sell those new prop bets and other betting products to as many clients as they can. That's what we're watching them start to try to sell to various people. And I don't know where they'll end up this year. They're working on stuff right now, but we hope that they sell to FanDuel. We hope we get another partnership with a FanDuel or DraftKings, because what that does is that they promote us, right? They'll talk about us on Instagram. They'll talk about us on their website. Again, back to how do we get more eyeballs paying attention? Hey, if you're a bettor and you're like, hey, what is this thing ultimate, right? Hey, you know what? Gosh, if I do a little homework, maybe I think I get an information advantage. We've been pretty impressed with DraftKings lines. They're pretty good, but every once in a while we're like, oh man, we think they got that one wrong. Gosh, we wish we could bet on it, because we were like, how'd they come up with that spread? That doesn't make any sense.
I've taken advantage of those spreads. Don't you worry.
Yeah, well, that's good. I'm glad somebody's having fun with it. But and that's cool, right? And as they get to know us, the lines get tighter, but we just want more betting products out there. Again, it's all fan engagement, it's all fan entertainment. As I tell my owners, we're in the entertainment business, flat out. We're in the entertainment business. We happen to be in the sports entertainment subcategory, and we throw parties. And that's really how I describe our business to our owners. I said, we're not in the ultimate business. Now, I've said that out loud. And I said, you got to get, just to get our minds, I like, the product is beautiful. The on-field product, it's beautiful. It flows. It's awesome. What we need to do is make sure we're engaging the fan, not just with what they see on the field, but everybody, when we go to a pro sporting event, you spend half your time on the phone, checking your fantasy league, shooting texts, doing selfies, making prop bets. That's just modern sports entertainment. And that's why we're continuing to kind of push the envelope with the video game, with the collectibles, with betting partners, because that's just what it means to be entertained in sports nowadays.
100%. That's awesome. Yeah, I can't wait if there's gonna be live in-game bets or prop bets. Like, me and my friends, like, we talk about all the time. We're watching a game or we're at a game and we're like, I would love to bet like Colorado because I know they're gonna come back in the second half. Or I see Alex Atkins get injured and I'm like, all right, well, maybe I don't take Colorado or something.
Yeah,
so that's exciting. That's very exciting.
Ryan, that's a great lead in to a question I have when you talked about Atkins and injuries. In the future, with betting becoming more prominent with Ultimate Frisbee, do you think there's going to need to be an increase in like how teams determine or when they tell when injuries are happen, or if players aren't going with them for a road game? Where like now it says like active versus dressed versus not dressed, and it's a little bit unclear. Do you think that that's going to be something that like either L Sports or DraftKings or just generally people are going to ask for a more, defined injury?
Yep. Joe, you're spot on. We've actually started to make that change already, because you're absolutely right. They want more information sooner and a more accurate level, right? And we totally get it. So we actually made a little bit of a tweak last year in terms of how early the teams had to submit information. Now, that said, we still allow people to make some changes, but we are actively discussing, like PUP, IR, those concepts. And so we have studied, NBA, the major pro sports, how they approach it. And yeah, I think we will continue to evolve, and I think we'll continue to have to be more transparent about status of players, because if someone as big as DraftKings makes a line and you got Joe Smash Anderson all of a sudden can't play, or one of the big handlers, if another cut all of a sudden doesn't show up for the game, that's a big deal, right? We all know that. And if DraftKings gets burned badly, because Ryan, if you're in Colorado, you're like, I just talked to another cut, man. He's gone for a wedding this weekend. He's not playing. And all of a sudden, they start bumping up how big of a bet you can make. And all of a sudden they see all the money is going away from Colorado. Somebody has information they don't have. That's a bad business deal for them, right? Then they get upset with us and they're like, why should we make lines? Why, we can make lines on a lot of sports out there, guys. There's hundreds. Yeah. And if you're not going to be good for us, then we'll just drop you. So, we want to be a good partner.
Yeah. Something that kind of got me thinking when you were talking about like the AUDL being too small to, kind of have the data go to those like larger companies, like what plans are in the works, or just are you aware of any initiatives to like improve data or get different kinds of data on Frisbee games?
Yeah, good question. So we continue, we created our own proprietary stats app a few years ago. And that's something that Tim DeBile has managed, done a great job. All the teams have at least one, if not two, statisticians who are on the sidelines, taking stats. You have one for the home game, a home team, one for the away team. So we are gathering a lot of that. And so I like a lot of the base statistics that we have, and you can do some derivatives. We haven't even touched, the world of baseball, right? WHIP and all this kind of stuff. But even now, they still come up with more and more statistics, which blow me away. So we haven't even touched, I'll call it that derivative set of statistics. Obviously, the big one, which we really want to have, is yards thrown, yards received. Now, we do calculate that, but it's a manual process. We've got it on iPad. And so, we don't have it to the accuracy where we share that with the betting companies for them to make lines on, because, just there's too much human error, and you can't afford that from a business perspective. So that's the big one, Andrew, that we'd like to get at some point. And we're working on some technology solutions, but not there yet. But that's the big horizon we'd like to get to.
Yeah. I was on like a plane like a few months ago, kind of in the middle of the season last year, and I was reading Moneyball again. And I was like, they're talking about like the model for like runs created or something, like how they got in, they have a formula to explain like the number of runs a team will score in a season. And I was like, man, if we could get people on like goals created in the AUDL, that'd be very cool. So I don't know if anyone's that's my pitch right there for the next next stat.
We'll do a little trademark AL if we come up, but that's part of what L Sports is doing. They're taking our data, and their crew over in Israel is playing around. What could you do to come up with some new cool prop bets and new statistics? So they're still learning. They didn't know anything about Ultimate. Only have a couple of years under their belt of kind of studying us, and so we'll see where all that goes.
Cool.
Speaking of stats, like a common complaint you hear is like a lack of a defensive stat that really kind of determine, just kind of like representative of who the best defenders are, because like you could get no blocks, but if the person you're guarding doesn't catch the disc once, like that's a pretty good game. Do you have any thoughts on that, or is there anything that's gonna like help defensive statistics at all?
We had Joe, we had that same debate. Is like, if you're a shutdown defender, right? You get no love, right? You get no stats, and you're like, but you were critical to the team, winning. So yeah, that's tough. The only thing you can do is kind of compare, and this is tough. Like, well, did so and so cover Nethercutt? Nethercutt got half the assists he normally does. Well, did you know who covered Nethercutt? Were they on him the whole game? Did you swap out because you were just trying to wear him down? And that's kind of tough. And so the short answer is no, we don't have any kind of, in the back pocket defensive stat. But yeah, it's something we talk about. In fact, if you look last year in our All-Star game, we wanted to show some love to the defensive players, which was, hey, who's the all defensive player? And just because, you kind of know who the good players are, but it's tough to objectively be able to define it. So.
I was gonna switch a little bit towards talking about viewership. And I'm curious, because a lot of what you've talked about is sort of expanding to people who are just learning about Ultimate or who don't already follow it. So obviously AUDL.TV is like a great product for people like us who want to watch all the games we can. So on the flip side of that is the weekly FS2 game. Is that sort of like the main point of entry into a wider market, or are there other ways you want to try to do that?
No, Sam, you're spot on. So yeah, we kind of break this down to a couple different buckets, right? So as we call it, this is classic kind of marketing speak. So top of funnel is where you get that the new audience, and that's exactly what Fox, and back in the day, 11 Stadium, ESPN, that's all to get with the new eyeballs, and that's exactly why we have a deal with the linear broadcaster Fox, and we used to be on Wednesday nights on a delayed broadcast. Then we got moved to Saturday nights, live or near live. This is the last year of the Fox contract, and we're going to have more live games, like, truly live, which is great, right? Because, if you're played at 11 o'clock Eastern, you only get so many eyeballs. We've done well. We have been above average for them. So they keep, kind of bumping us up the priority list. They keep re-showing our content on Sundays or Wednesdays because they like our content. They said, hey, it's good, So we have to kind of keep earning our stripes. And so that's exactly how we kind of look at that piece. DraftKings, you know, we thought, hey, that's neat that you're trying to put live content out there. We keep debating, you know, whether we should do kind of free on YouTube. Obviously, a lot of other people will distribute content for free. And it's interesting. We've asked our sponsorship sales group at Legends, like, you know, shouldn't a new eyeball be the same value no matter what distribution channel? I said, actually, the big national sponsors value an eyeball more on Fox Sports than they do on YouTube. So we're like, okay, you know, we'd still like to see if we can find a way to distribute some content for free. But, you know, from an economic perspective, you know, we continue to look for deals on a Fox or an ESPN, somebody like that, because Fox only gets 17 of our games, right? You know, 17 Saturday night games. We have 150 plus games that will be played on a season. So we have more inventory that we could sell or send to a linear broadcast partner. And then, of course, you know, we designed AUDL.TV, one, just to bring a common platform together for all the live streams that the teams were doing, you know, years ago. And then it was designed more like NFL Red Zone, you know, for the super fan. And so it said, hey, let's do that. We know we're charging a premium. Let's have that as a base. Let's have, you know, the top of funnel Fox Sports, and then let's see where we go. Because not only did we have to kind of analyze and get better data, because we didn't have a lot of good data. So it was kind of tough for us to know, you know, make good management decisions. And then now you've got, you know, Apple, Amazon, all of these new players coming in, you know, Flow Sports doing a lot of kind of second, third tier. You have so many players out there who are distributing live content that we're like, okay, let's take our time, because the landscape changes, you know, feels like every week something new is popping up. So we're going to keep watching this. I think we will continue to, you know, pursue a Fox or an ESPN, figure out who our good partner is going to be over time. Obviously, ESPN knows Ultimate with club and college. So we'll see where it goes. But we need those new eyeball, top of funnel kind of concepts.
Mm-hmm. Sort of a unrelated follow-up question, but I like to I do a lot of reading of like nonfiction books about like the history of the NBA and like basketball. And so a lot of times when I'm reading those, it makes me think about Frisbee, like the early history where, you know, they would play NBA finals games like on tape delay. So I'm just curious, do you sort of look at those as like, look at the development of sports leagues as sort of like a historical like business lesson?
Yes, we spent a lot of time probably looking at the NBA more than any other sport. We really respect what Silver's done and his predecessors. I think we've learned more from the NBA than the other sports. I mean, good lessons and bad lessons from every sport, right? And so we try to absorb a lot, take the lessons that we can and apply them to us. You know, again, I was reading an article. Well, you step back. So yeah, I think we're putting out some past finals out on YouTube. Just Luke Johnson it was emailing around. So we were looking at, yeah, just putting out content, right? Just distributing content. We're putting it out on YouTube just to get some more eyeballs on, hey, what is this Ultimate thing? I've heard of it. And then maybe, you know, then get them to pick us up on Fox or follow us on the website or do something, right? We're trying to get them to kind of come over and be fans and engaged clients. But we look at how do they kind of keep progressing, entertaining the fan, engaging the fan, making themselves a better product. I mean, you look at the All-Star game, right? This was a big year for us to play with some stuff. Pulling from the brick mark, 2-point play. I mean, we played around with a lot of things. And obviously the 2-point play is a big debate, right? You look at what the 3-point play did for basketball, completely changed it, right? Completely changed. And so we don't want to be gimmicky. You know, we really want to, again, I think we've got a great on-field product. I think Ultimate as it is a really neat sport, but could it be tweaked to be better for the fan, but also the players respect it and enjoy playing? Yeah, I think we continue to kind of do some things. And so we keep looking at all-star game, preseason games to kind of, you know, play around with some rules, just like we watch, NBA, NFL. How do they introduce new rules, things like that? So we're trying to take some lessons from the major pro sports for sure.
I'm pretty sure I saw earlier today on YouTube the 2013 or 2014 championship weekend live. That's funny you say that.
Yeah, that was it.
Oh, that's so funny. All right. Well, speaking of lessons you've taken as a league, I have a question for you specifically about being a commissioner. I was reading an article about how in 2021 you had suspended 3 players for, I think, an on-field fight, and I was wondering if that was a difficult decision, and also when you took over as commissioner, were you expecting to have controversies or to be suspending people, or was that completely unexpected? Because obviously that doesn't happen very often.
Yeah, I mean, again, someone who's been playing Ultimate since '85, there's not a lot of physical altercations. We've always talked about bad bids, things. This has been going on for a long time. As the game, we're getting bigger, faster, stronger in Ultimate, right? And when you get bigger, faster, stronger, if you have contact, I'm an engineer, so force equals mass times acceleration, and you get bigger people accelerating faster, it's a bigger force, which means greater a probability of injury. So I think it's something we'll continue to have to watch as a sport overall. But yeah, I didn't really see it when I joined in 2015. Really didn't come up a lot. People are usually pretty cool about things. The players, I think, they know each other, they see each other in club afterwards. And they're pretty respectful, which is great, right? Boy, a lot of the big major pro sports have a lot of bigger issues, battery, people getting arrested. I mean, I'm not sure you could pay me enough to be Roger Goodell and some of the other guys. But so that was the Seattle-Dallas game I think you're referencing, and it was tough. We have procedures that are in place. We have to, I sit down with the director of officials. We have the review of the video. We then asked the player to get with us on a Zoom, and we did have those players come on a Zoom. All the players that were involved, we interviewed them. We got their side of the story because we didn't want to watch it on film because, we don't have 5 cameras with a bunch of different angles. And we talked to the coaches, we talked to the officials. We go through all of that. We gather all of our information. We sit down, we talk about it. We look at precedent, and then we, hand down whatever the punishment is going to be, if any. And that's the same with both that Seattle-Dallas game as we've had with anything. Again, knock on wood, we don't have a lot of that stuff, which is great. I don't expect it because I think we have a lot of really good players, just good people. But, we've got policies and procedures in place in case it happens again.
One thing you were talking about earlier was just kind of viewership and getting, people who aren't involved in Frisbee to learn more about the sport. And then you were comparing kind of the growth of the NBA. And I was curious do you think Frisbee is going to have a Michael Jordan that really takes Frisbee to new heights? And why is it Marquez Brown?
So Ryan, you guys must be looking at all of our internal notes, man, because you're hitting on all the good stuff. So yeah, we have talked about, a sports entertainment, right? You step back and say we're entertainment. It's all about stories. It's all about we call them pillar players. That's the kind of phraseology we're using internally, pillar players. And you're right. You look at what Jordan did. I mean, look at this whole, movie that's coming out, on Nike, right? And the Air Jordan brand. And we've looked and we watched this, talk about looking at lessons from other sports. I love all my players equally, right? You have to as commissioner, but we realize that commercial success is going to depend on being able to tell the stories of your pillar players, right? And that's just the name of the game. We are starting to focus more of our time and attention to the pillar players. And you could be a pillar player for different reasons. You could have great on-field stats, right? You're just blowing away everybody. The Rowan McDonald's and Nethercuts and obviously Ben Yard and Jack and all. They're just, great stats, right? Great players on the field. but there's also some great stories too. And this is the change that we're making internally, is to really understand our players off the field and to understand who they are as a total person. And those are great people that we want to talk about. Because everybody has a day job, right? There's only a few players that spend all their time playing Ultimate, and we're not there yet. We're great to see some people. And Marquis is, he's great, right? He has got, his followers, right? 16 million, blow away the entire league. and we met, and we're jealous. He's great. But he keeps his worlds fairly separate. We totally respect that. We understand it. He has built a tremendous business on YouTube, and that's great. But he has been a good advisor to us when talking about social media, how we can be better and smarter. And he's good. It's great. He's also an awesome player, right? So he has deserved all the accolades that he's gotten from the league. It's not just, hey, let's include Marquez because we're hoping he'll retweet something or repost. No, he's earned his stripes. So that's a bonus for sure.
Yeah.
Ryan, that question's so disrespectful when there is somebody literally named Michael Jordan who plays for Minnesota right now.
That is true.
Yeah. You can't say who's the Michael Jordan of the eight. They have one already.
Yeah. Yeah. I just assumed you meant of the NBA.
Steve, I'm wondering, when you put Brownlee in the fan vote for the All-Star game, how positive were you that he was going to win that?
Yeah, and that's tough, right? Because we was like, who deserves it? And that's one of the things I don't get involved in those things. We actually have our media, Evan Lepler and the Daniel Cohens, the people who are really kind of in the weeds. We let them put all that together. I actually purposely stay out of it because I don't want to have, any bias flow in from a commercial perspective. So, and when I look at it and they're like, listen, this is who we think really deserves to be in the pool. Sure. I look at him like, okay, if he props himself at all, it's going to be tough. But that's just part of an all-star, voting. So
exactly. Yeah, everyone. Exactly.
Yeah. I wanted to switch gears just a little bit. Sure. I think it just occurred to me. I think we should definitely ask a question in regards to this, but I'm curious about your relationship with the PUL and the WUL. What's your relationship like with the leadership in those leagues, and do you have any plans to? I've seen like some double headers that, like, I think LA and the Astra are having a double header, and I think DC teams are doing that as well.
Yep.
So what can you speak to that at all?
Sure. Yeah. So, kind of roll the clock back, knew the leaders of the PUL at its inception. And we had said, hey, let us know how we can be helpful. This is your national stage. You need to decide what works for you all as an organization, your goals, your structure. Let us know how we can help. So we were on that. I don't know if you guys realize there's a big kind of, I call it an advisory board. I forgot what the formal name was. We were on there, USA Ultimate, some other individuals, and that was great. And so we all kind of just gave our advice to them as they were growing. They felt, I think, it had run its course. So they disbanded that, and then they, continued to evolve from there. And so that's, we've just said, hey, doors open if you give us a ring, if we can be helpful advice or whatever on any aspect of just kind of running a sports business. And then we've started to develop that same kind of conversation with Felicia Yang over at WUL. Felicia and I might exchange some emails, some calls a few times a year. She'll talk to like the Tim DeBile, hey, question on media, talk to Luke Johnson. Like, great, how can we be helpful? So I would say it's probably more of an advisory friend conversation at the league level. But yeah, the more active conversations are at the team level. Like you said, the Aviators and Astra, first game for the Aviators, it's a doubleheader with the Astra. Super excited about that. And yeah, it's, and it's up to the teams, depending on their local relationship, do whatever makes sense. Obviously, you've got like the Mike Donardises of the world who have dual ownership. You've got the Titcomb siblings with dual ownership in Seattle, which is great. And then again, as we have, ideas that pop up, I'll forward an email or an article to Felicia, said, hey, such and such about the WT or new investors in women's sports. Hey, have y'all spoken to, to these people? Hey, have you thought about this idea? So, if something pops up where I think that might be useful, I'll just forward an email with a couple of notes, and then, we may or may not have an exchange from there. So
that's awesome.
Very cool.
Question about just some of the old teams and new teams. So last year we saw Ottawa and Tampa Bay both fold. And then we saw the new Houston team. And I was wondering, from a commissioner side and a business side, is that strictly a financial decision? The owners kind of pull out? What goes into, new teams and teams being disbanded?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So it's kind of two levels. So the first is we look at the geographic market. Does it make sense strategically, geographically? Can a team likely not only survive but thrive, right? And that's the first kind of cut. That's the reason Ottawa. That was one of the big reasons at Ottawa we decided to go ahead and shrink Ottawa, because it's tough. You're right outside Montreal. They actually had very good attendance, but a little tough. The size of the market. The Canadian US dollar mismatch made it even harder from a financial standpoint as a smaller market team. And that's what we said, hey, let's shrink it. Let's let Canada kind of focus right now its efforts on Toronto and Montreal. So that's the first one we decide strategically, because we've had teams in the past where the ownership needed to dissolve or move on, and we've kept it. Minnesota's turned over ownership, Atlanta turned over. We've had definitely a handful of teams kind of turn over ownership because we said, hey, we want that market. Let's keep that market. San Jose has become Oakland. We want to have that team, but we said Oakland actually is a little bit better spot on the Bay Area. San Francisco and Tampa, that's been a bigger debate, which is, can the Bay Area handle two teams? Theoretically, probably could. We could theoretically probably have two teams in the greater New York, metropolitan area. But, do we have an ownership group that, has the financial abilities, interest, and do they have the time? Because a lot of people just, life happens, family, work, things like that. Tampa was really tough. I feel really bad. Their majority owner, both his parents got gravely ill. One has passed. So that was really, really tough on him. Obviously, they struggled, from a record perspective, attendance perspective. So they were already kind of in a bit of a tough market. Florida is kind of there in ultimate, but maybe not a hotbed. And so we said, let's let Tampa shrink now. I could see us maybe coming back to Florida someday. But, as we look forward, Kansas City, we've been open about Kansas City is a town that we're looking at very, very closely for expansion next year. Nashville, Charlotte again, maybe someday St. Louis. There's a handful of cities that we could see being, legit territories for the AUDL in the future.
Awesome.
How did Houston and their ownership come about after that? How do you know, like earlier in the year, that a couple teams might fold and are looking for a new team to join, or is it kind of independent of each other? And at what point of the year did you know that Houston was going to come in?
Yeah, it's interesting. I'd say, gosh, every story is different, right? Some years we have maybe a 2 to 3 year ramp where we're like, okay, let's start to, get to know a potential investor. They're getting to know us. Let's think about the city, et cetera. So Houston's a very interesting story. So I actually got to know the owner, the SaberCats. So Houston SaberCats is a Major League Rugby team. And the Houston Havoc are playing in the SaberCats stadium called Aviva Stadium. And I had gotten to know the owner and have been talking to them for a while. And you guys have a sweet stadium, perfect size. They've got 2 practice pitches, a gym, a meeting room. I'm like, you will have the gold standard of AUDL, properties. And it's kick butt. And so we were kind of getting to know them. Do they want to be involved? How do they want to be involved? And then the other owner, Dhruv Sharma, is buddies with CJ O'Brien up in Chicago. And I got to meet Dhruv at a couple of championship weekends. And lo and behold, he's like, hey, I'm interested. I was like, well, I've been talking to the SaberCats. And so we were just kind of talking about, hey, 2024. And so, but I started to have some real deep conversations with them last summer. And let's keep talking. Let's keep talking. Let's launch maybe, April, May of 2023 for your 2024 season. Nice and steady, right? And then, Ottawa, we kind of saw the writing on the wall there. Tampa was a little bit of a surprise just with the help of the parents. Just it collapsed literally when both parents got gravely ill. And so I was like, wow, we can't have 4 teams in a division, right? That doesn't work. And so I called the people back in Houston and said, hey, so how would y'all like to go for 2023? Let's hit the accelerator. And they were great. They all stepped up. The director of operations and the director of marketing for the Houston SaberCats have joined the staff on a part-time basis for the Havoc. So we've got them, JT and Molly Onyet. They're awesome. They both have minor league baseball experience as well as Major League Rugby experience. So they understand sports entertainment. It's awesome. Drew, super great guy. And then Sean McCall, who actually played for me in Charlotte back in the day when his brother was coached for a year. Sean, longtime Ultimate player at the high level scene in Texas. Bex Forth, she was our partner with the Eurostars tour. She happened to live in Houston. I've been talking to Bex for years, and all of a sudden, it all came together. Sean happens to be related to Bex, brother-in-law. So it was a great family that we quickly built in Houston over, a month or two. Wow. And they are cranking away. Not a hotbed for Ultimate right now, but let me tell you, everyone should put them on the radar screen because it is a awesome team who's got a lot of energy, a lot of knowledge, and a lot of drive. And it's a beautiful stadium, and it's going to be, I think they're going to be one of the tops over the years.
Awesome. Very cool. I'm excited to check. Cool. I'm excited to check it out because I live in New Orleans, and I think I'm the only one out of us who's in a city where there's not currently an AUDL team. So I'm hoping to pop over to Houston check out a game and see how that's going. So I'm excited for that.
Yeah, we've thought about New Orleans, yeah. And I'll be down there for Fire on the Bayou early April for Old Peeps Ultimate. But I just keep thinking as someone who grew up in Southeast Texas and Beaumont and Orange County, I'm like, gosh, Houston's already hot enough. Man, playing New Orleans like playing in a swimming pool. And so again, New Orleans is growing NODA, Great New Orleans Disc Association. So we'll see, and Major League Rugby is there. And so that's actually, we have a high degree of overlap with Major League Rugby. I think New Orleans there may be one other town where we don't overlap. So it was really cool for us to start to partner with Major League Rugby and coexist in a stadium like the Atlanta Hustle and Rugby Atlanta both play at Silverback Stadium. So we're starting to kind of get to know each other and can we leverage each other? So those are some of the things that we think about, but love New Orleans.
Very cool.
Something I just thought of, do you think there's an advantage for Ultimate to have new teams be able to come in and be really good since there's not this expansion draft with the team probably not being that good, but Salt Lake City and Denver being able to come in last year and be, get a storyline throughout the year that this is a new team and they're playing really well and now they're going to the playoffs. Is that something you think is an advantage for the AUDL compared to maybe other professional sports?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's something that we think about. And yeah, ideal world, we could move players around, right? But we're just not at that economic point. It would be great, but there's not a correlation necessarily. I actually run this for the last 2 years for the owners. 2 years ago, there was a 0.04 correlation between a won-loss record and attendance. Last year, it had bumped up to 0.12, 0.25 if you included the expansion teams, but Colorado and Salt Lake crushed it both in attendance and won-loss records. So they kind of skewed the data a little bit. And first year, that's your glory year. Everyone's excited. You're the new shiny toy in town, right? So it would be nice, certainly, if everyone loves to come watch a winner, and if you have a great won-loss record, it makes it easy. But again, looking at that correlation, we're still kind of, again, we're an emerging sport. So you can be successful. I mean, look at Ottawa. They had above average crowds and always struggled, with the 1-loss record. So I think you can do it if you're smart. Back to the, hey, we're in the entertainment business. So like Houston's going to focus very heavily on their themes, throwing a party. I said, when you show up in that parking lot, you should excite the senses, sight, smell, and sound. When you get out of your car, it should look like a pro sports entertainment. It should sound like pro sports entertainment. And I said, it kind of sounds strange to say smell like, but you ought to smell the burgers or the whatever. You're at a party. And if you show up and it's crickets, you're like, do I want to bring my friends who think Ultimate is throwing discs in the woods, carrying a 4-pack of IPA? No. I mean, you want to bring them to a party, right? And so in Houston, you'll actually see we're going to have a tailgate right in front of the entranceway. So, we're gonna pack the house that first game. When people show up, it's gonna be loud. There's gonna be noise. We're gonna be cooking burgers, and awesome. The keg's gonna be tapped, and people be like, "This is cool," right? That's part of it. So
yeah, I just want to shout out Colorado because I went to pretty much every game this year, and I would take friends that have no idea what Ultimate is, and every single one was like, that was fun. Like I would go back. Like they didn't really know what was going on, but they'd see people jumping really high, throwing the disc really far. It was a good atmosphere all around. So props to whoever's in charge of that in Colorado.
Yeah. So Sal Pace and his team, brilliant. They get the joke, right? They get it. They intentionally had music every game. I think all 6 games. And they got it right. Throw a concert, right? Every fun party has music, good food, beverages of some kind. I mean, whether it's a kid's party or an adult party, it's the same thing. You got something fun happening. You got good food. It's just cool to go hang out. So it's like, folks, this isn't rocket science, and it's not like we have some slow, game going on, on the field. We got a really cool game on top of everything. So hey, throw a fun party. And by the way, people are like, oh my God, like you said, these people are legit, man. They run fast, they jump high, they run all the day. And now we talk about affordability and accessibility to how do we differentiate our sport, right? And this is a big thing we focus on at Leadership. We call it affordable fun for family and friends. People love the alliterations. Affordable fun for family. So it's affordable. We purposely price it lower, and we're accessible. We talk about affordability and accessibility. After the game is over, you can go on the field. You can get photographs. You can get signatures. Can you do that at the NBA base? No, maybe a little minor league baseball, maybe minor league hockey, but yeah. And we talk to the players. You got to sign, take 1 million pictures with kids, sign everything that they want. That's part of, I think, the magic sauce that when people come like, so we can like walk on the field. Really? You're like, yeah, absolutely. That's what we do. We go down, we toss the disc. Yeah. You can go shake hands with, the players. Wow, that's kind of cool, So
they stopped letting us on the field in the second half of the Colorado season. So I'm gonna clip this and I'm gonna pull it up. Commissioner Steve Ball said I can go throw.
I know. Yeah, it is true. And that's part of what we tell the owners. Like, listen, you got to do what you got to do. DU is a great place for Summit, but listen, it would be really good if you can talk. And even if they don't want you on the formal pitch, negotiate to let kids come on the sidelines.
So they let kids on the field. It was like a weird age that it was all judgments. Kids are allowed on the field, but not adults.
Right. Especially for a grass field, there's the people who manage those grass fields. I get it. You don't want it to get torn up. We're not the only tenant, right? Lots of other people are using the grass. So that's why I say negotiate a place in a corner, sideline. They're usually pretty good about that, but I said you got to be upfront thinking about that. Don't get caught on the backside when you're begging to let the people come on at the end of the day.
Yeah. I know you have a heart out in a minute.
Yeah, I got 1 or 2 minutes, guys, before I have to jump to our owners call.
Joe, Sam, Andrew, anyone got the last great question?
Who's got the big one?
I think I've got a good one. I'd like to zoom out just really quick. Sure. What are your concrete goals for the league moving forward? Let's say the next 5 years.
Yep. So great question. We all have KPIs. All of our internal staff all have KPIs. So I want to see 25% growth in in-person attendance. So we have a metric called aggregated audience. Props to legends who I'm stealing their thunder. So 25% growth in-person audience. I want 25% growth in the Fox Sports eyeballs. Those are two biggies, because the more people that we have, that means more, tickets, merchandise, concession sales for the teams. So, more money in their pocket to do more things. And that leads to bigger sponsorship deals, bigger media deals, which is how the league earns their money for the most part. So those are two biggies. I want to continue on the 5 years, take it from 24 teams to 28 teams, want 4 divisions at 7. We're building out a youth training business, the video game. I want more utility in the digital collectible. So it's really an engaging tool that we have with our fans. And I also want to build out, more relationships with the gaming world. So those are the really big chunky ones that we have, that we talk about internally for sure.
That's.
I was just saying, I know you have to go in a minute. So I was gonna let you have an out here, but thank you so much for coming on to this. This is so amazing to be able to talk to you, and we're all very excited for the upcoming season.
Yeah, super, guys. I really appreciate it, what you guys do. I follow you on social media. Love what y'all are doing. Again, happy to chat. I think we got a lot of cool stuff going on. A lot of it you don't see behind the scenes. I'm happy to let you under the tent as far as I can, without giving up any confidences. But again, I want you guys to know about what we're doing. We try to be pretty transparent. So
sounds good.
Awesome, guys. Thanks so much. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, Steve. Appreciate it.
See you guys. Ciao.
What an episode.
Oh, I got a
buzzer
so bad.
at the buzzer.
We asked him so many questions, and we just had so many more we didn't even get to ask him.
He's so good at talking.
It was amazing.
So interesting.
Yep.
You don't get to where he's at and not be like have the, what's the word, oratory skills. I don't know. That guy could talk all day, and I would be on the edge of my seat, listen to every word.
I know. He really knows how to give super interesting answers and super interesting anecdotes, and have it all just relate to the league and marketing the league and pushing the league for everything he talked about was oh, that makes sense. That's a great answer. And it was also just so interesting to hear him say it.
Yeah, that was really cool. He also it's hard to I think most of us normals, when we're answering a question, and if it's a long-winded question, we'll answer the first part and then forget about the other part or whatever. But he'll circle back and answer every aspect of every part. That's what amazed me the most. He seems so stoked to be on our podcast.
Yeah.
I don't know if we're 60 episodes in or something, but I think we did a good episode finally. I think we have a good episode.
Yeah. Yeah,
so we got one.
And not by any doing of our own.
No, we just got the right guy.
Yeah. We just got to get people who are good at talking.
Anyway, I got to run to catch the bus. So, do we have more before we wrap up?
Open.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Are we open?
I'm open.
I'm open.